Hello everyone and welcome to Vocabulary Unit 12. We're going to be discussing the terms that are coming from the play The Tempest. There are many words that we can use to describe how much we detest something, and abhor is one of them. So to regard, whoops, how did that happen? Hold on. Darn it. Okay, sorry about that. To regard with hatred or dislike is to abhor something, right? To regard with hatred or disgust is to abhor. Think about Achilles, who abhors Agamemnon's cowardice, right? To abjure something is to renounce it, to give it up. So if you were to say that the sinners in hell, in Dante's hell, abjure any responsibility or culpability, you would be correct in that assumption. To feel ardor for something is to feel enthusiasm. And if you remember the short story, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, Peyton Farquhar was an ardent, let's change it into an adjective, follower of the South. So if you have enthusiasm and passion, the noun form would be ardor. A lot of people like to say August just for the month, but when something is august, it is respectable. It is respected and dignified and majestic. The august ceremony to bid this leader farewell, it was so impressive and majestic. It was august. Sometimes, especially conquerors like William the Conqueror waited for an auspicious sign in the sky before he would set sail to England for his invasion. Auspicious means anything that is favorable, something that's conducive to success. It is not auspicious for you to ask your chemistry teacher your grade when you've just blown up the lab with your Bunsen burner. It's not a favorable time, an opportune time to do so. Bereft has as its root the idea of bereaving or to bereavement. When you're bereft of something, you're deprived of something. You lack it. Like Macbeth is bereft of friends at the end of the play. I'm sure in your religion classes you talked about what it means to blaspheme. When something is blasphemous, it is sacrilegious. It is against God or anything sacred. To blaspheme, right? Blasphemous. We see the root word here of creed, which is something to do with believing. If you're credulous, it means you have this tendency, having or showing too great a readiness to believe. People might say you're gullible, right? When someone is credulous, it doesn't take much to convince them. We had this word before when we were covering Gilgamesh. Din is loud, unpleasant, prolonged noise. That's why Enlil sends the flood, if you remember back in Gilgamesh. Unlike Noah, the flood is sent in Noah's time because the people were sinners. But here it's just because of Din. Discourse. Discourse is anything to do with written or spoken communication. we need to have a calm discourse about the subject, whether it's written or communicated verbally in debate form. Discourse. Disdain is something that we saw with the Renaissance just before with Helene and Ronsard. She looked upon him with disdain, right? She looked upon him with contempt, with scorn, disapproval. And he's trying to tell her, live, pluck the roses of today. You know, in other words, you're not going to have me forever. A ditty is a short, simple song. To sing a ditty is to sing a short, simple song. You can see the word enemy here for enmity. When enmity exists between two people, it's the state of feeling an opposition. It's the state of being opposed or hostile to someone. You could call enmity animosity. There's enmity between the Trojans and the Greeks, especially after the death of Patroclus, or even, I should say, the kidnapping of Helen. To extirpate something is to root out and destroy. Think about Oedipus in Oedipus Rex. He vows to extirpate the pollution from Thebes. He's going to root out who killed King Laius, and he's going to send them packing or kill them. Now, fathom and furlong are both measurements. A furlong is a measurement of land, approximately like a quarter mile, 220 yards. And a fathom is 6 feet of water. But fathom also has another definition over here. I'm just going to put it as a verb. If you can't fathom why somebody does something, it means you can't comprehend it. You can't understand. Like Dante can't understand. He can't fathom why Francesca is being punished the way she's being punished. A ghastly sight is a grotesque one, something that causes great horror or fear. Dante beholds the ghastly sight of Dis in the final circle of hell. He says it made him feel he wasn't dead, but he was barely alive by the same token. It was so frightening. A harpy is a mythological monster, and some of you probably know from your study of Percy Jackson or even of Greek myth and Roman myth that it's a monster that's shaped like a bird. It has a woman's head, sometimes a woman's body, and a bird's wings, or a woman's head and a bird's wings and body. Either way, it's a combination of a bird and a woman, and they're very unpleasant. They are rapacious. They're hungry all the time. We can use the word harpy also for any woman who is like a monster. Any woman who is unpleasant and, nasty. Like, think of The Devil and Tom Walker, Mrs. Walker, she's terrible, right? She's unpleasant. She's more, if not as much, she could be more miserly than, and more greedy than her husband, right? So that's harpy. And then we just have a few more left. Impertinent actually has 2 definitions, okay? When something is pertinent, it means that it's relevant to a topic. So we could say that if you make a comment that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, on a simple level, it's just irrelevant. It's, think about in math, a tangent. It's tangential. It's not on the subject. But most times when you use impertinent, it often means that you're not showing respect. An impertinent remark is rude An impertinent remark, if you don't mind my going over here, is insolent. Because that's exactly the definition here. When someone is insolent, they are impertinent. They are rude, obnoxious. They're not following the proper rules of behavior, when you're being insolent. Indignation. Okay. When you're feeling indignation, you're literally feeling angry, right? So it's anger or annoyance. And usually when you're experiencing indignation, you're feeling this way because you sense that you've been treated unfairly. So you're provoked by unfair treatment. For example, think about Achilles. He feels great indignation over the fact that Hector is running around in his armor, the armor that he had taken off the body of Patroclus. There's a deep feeling of resentment here. And indulgence, you know what it means to indulge in your whims? This is the act of giving in. This is the tendency of being too lenient. Think about, there are certain parents who are too indulgent of their kids. And as soon as they cry, just a little bit, they cave and they give the kid whatever he wants. Sometimes it's good for them to cry, So when you're indulgent, you're, giving in or yielding quite often. And if you say that somebody is an inveterate gambler or an inveterate liar, you're saying that they are habitual, that it is long lasting. It can't be changed. Think about the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County, and Jim Smiley was an inveterate gambler. And that, my friends, is all we have to say for the first half of the words from The Tempest. Unit 13 from The Tempest will continue and pick up with the next set of letters as we go through the remainder of the list. Okay? But that's Unit 12.